Shortly after 1 p.m. we will start. I see that we do have a quorum. The village adopted a COVID-19 protocol screening question list. We'll begin with that. Anyone who's had a fever of 100.4 degrees or higher within the last 14 days, yes or no? If yes, you may leave. Anyone with a cough, shortness of breath, any pneumonia, flu, or similar symptoms, traveled out of Arkansas in the last 14 days, or if you had guests or family in the village from other states where sheltering in place orders have been recommended or required within the last 14 days, or if you had contact with anyone who has lab confirmed coronavirus or is currently testing. All right, we will begin our meeting with a look at the minutes from our last meeting. Has everyone had a chance to read the minutes and learn the accuracy? Any recommended changes?
This would be a good time for one. If I present it now, I understand I can pretend the minutes have been represented. They should say the meeting was November 30th. Thanks to Gary, I'm sorry, November 23rd instead of November 30th. And I have changed them for that.
Okay. I think you had that Karina was absent too. I don't.
Yeah, I was here. You were here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then I'll have to correct them. My apologies. I should do them immediately.
Anything else? Do I hear a motion to adopt or approve the minutes as amended?
Motion approved. Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
We've been working on a budget post-mortem. It's been circulated, comments added. John or Tom, would you like to?
My assignment the last time was to add on a brief description of what went on with fees. I did, and I also added a little explanation of how the fee process works usually, how those suggestions come to the forefront, mainly for general education for people that may not know that. And so we can identify and put in the report a bit of history, so that if it changes in the future, we'll also make a note that it might be different from the way it is currently conducted now. So that's all I had.
Before we go any further, I intended to do this earlier. I need to welcome our two newest members. Jeff Lofgren is joining us by Zoom today, and Larry Senior is here. Those two gentlemen are on the consent agenda for this Wednesday's board meeting for approval. They recently agreed to join the committee, and the board has their names on the consent agenda for the week's meeting. They are certainly welcome to join in discussions today. Technically, if we go to a vote, they won't be able to vote today, but reasons that they are on the committee is because they can form opinions, and we are glad about that. All right. Mr. Tom?
Okay. Very brief. I presented the postmortem at our last meeting, which included comments from Karina. Based on any other comments that I got, which were very few, I circulated draft 2. I assume everybody has had an opportunity to look at draft 2. I received no further comments. So with that, if there's no further comments and no discussion items, then my guess is, and this is up to the chair, of course, we have a motion to entertain a motion to adopt the postmortem and vote on it. And assuming it passes, then pass it on to the board. I think that's the way it works.
That's the procedure, yes.
Okay.
Are there any other comments?
We're pretty satisfied to submit this to the board. We feel that this speaks for the committee.
Just to clarify in my mind, the yellow highlighted areas, tell me again.
The yellow highlighted areas were additions to the first draft. So if you're happy with the first draft, then you should have just been able to read the highlighted areas. And those are the changes in version 2.
So these sentences that begin with "in observation"
Those were,
dropped off.
no, those were comments made by Karina. So I put all the comments that say an observation really just says, I mean, we know that Karina is the one who suggested them, and I thought that they were worthwhile keeping, particularly because she represents staff and the rest of us don't. So, I mean, I value her comments probably out of proportion to her numbers on the committee. I think it's important that staff be, fairly represented in this analysis.
So the page 4.
Okay. We have a big X.
Yes.
Oh dear. I had sent out the draft executive summary separately.
Let's see.
But so what you're saying is, at least 2 of you weren't able to look at it.
I did get that, it just wasn't part of this
Right,
attachment.
right. Okay. I think it's really cool that you have big red X.
All right, as if
Hey, Mike, where are we going to get our swag bags?
He dropped his balls and he's looking for his.
Yeah, we're having a meeting here. You might want to take it next door. Sorry, I didn't know it was going to balls.
Did I strike that?
She says.
He dropped his balls and he's a swag bag.
okay, has everybody seen the summary that Tom mentioned?
And I think I sent out a second because they couldn't read mine at all. I thought I sent it out a second time in PDF format, so it should have come through if you had printed that out. But if you printed out the ODT format, then I can see it if not coming through.
Any comments?
No, I'm good with it. I think I'm good with everything that's in the report, the postmortem, and I think it's important to realize we don't necessarily have to agree on 100% what's in there, but we have to come to consensus that that's acceptable and for the most part covers most of the process or all the process that we went through, and we're comfortable forwarding that onto the board of directors. From that perspective, I think that's how we should be looking at it. I'm comfortable with it.
Morris?
I'm good. John and Karina had 90% of the work into that thing, so I'm definitely comfortable with it. John's comfortable with it.
Karina?
Absolutely.
Consensus is the name of the game. All right, we have a motion to approve the report.
Make a motion to approve as written to forward to the board.
Second.
All in favor?
So what I'll do is I'll take out the draft, I'll date it, and then take out the yellow, and then this time I'll send it out in PDF format, so you should be able to read it.
we haven't adopted a standard report format to date. This looks fine to me for this type of communication. All right. My paper again. The proposals by the planning work group is the next item on the agenda. And that's you again, Tom.
Okay. Again, everybody should have gotten an email from me with approximately a 6-page attachment, 5-page attachment. I had gone over this at the last meeting, so there should be really nothing new. There are 3 proposed goals. One of them has to do with increased revenues and reduced maintenance backlog. The second is increased new housing development, and the third is create an internet access plan. I think the only hiccup, and maybe a major hiccup, is that since we drafted and first reviewed the increased revenues and reduced maintenance backlog, this committee has been asked to think about addressing maintenance needs and fixing infrastructure. There was a meeting last Wednesday. I was not able to attend that meeting, so I'm not sure what has happened since, or what happened at that meeting. So whatever is in our recommendation with respect to increased revenues and reduced maintenance backlog, I would say that goal, that recommended goal, right now is in play. So I'm not sure what to do with that recommendation. I would say either we hold that one back and just say, when we figure out what we're supposed to do, we'll essentially rewrite it.
I believe that's the answer. We will table that because Dick Garrison is with us by Zoom today, and I believe he's going to bring us up to date on that official appointment.
Okay, so if that's the case, I see no reason to table the second two regarding new housing development and internet access plan. In which case, again, I've circulated the proposal last meeting, got no comments, so at which point I would make a motion to approve those 2 goals as written.
Hey, Tom, this is Jeff Lofgren.
Yes, Jeff.
Yeah, can I just make a quick comment with regards to the wording of create internet access plan? I read through the documents that were sent out and wondered whether or not that is actually the right kind of language that we're looking at doing. Is it our job to create an access plan, or is it that we're trying to improve existing internet access within the village? I'm picking at the words a little bit, but I'm trying to make sure that it's understood what it is the committee would attack.
Our job is not to create a internet access plan. The recommendation is that at the end of, by December 31st, 2022, which is probably a very loose goal. I mean, it should be extremely well achievable by that time. We're recommending that the board do 2 things, well, actually 3 things. The first is to hire or not hire, but to appoint a resource to actually own all things internet related. It would be that resource's job to create the plan. So basically, the way I look at it is this committee's responsibility is to recommend the goal, how to accomplish that goal. That's it. So does that answer your question?
It does. I agree with the sub point of the POA needs to hire somebody who's smart on all this kind of technology so that we can compete in this space with the different vendors that are out there. That makes logical sense to me. And then the committee's supporting whoever that person is to try and then improve our internet access across the village seems to me what you're trying to say. So if that's what you're with this bullet point is trying to say, then I believe that that's makes sense to me.
Dick, does the board have someone in mind, or a committee? Has something been done about that? I've heard several things in the past, but nothing definitive.
The GAC's been working on this for years. I mean, this isn't something new. You got people, excuse my voice, people on the GAC that are up to their neck in this thing. And you've got individuals out there working on it also. This isn't something that is being neglected.
All right.
Yeah, just a little history on this. Our working group met with Keith Keck, Greg Jones, and Dennis Simpson. Greg Jones has been a longtime GAC member who has spent a lot of time investigating internet. And they were the ones who proposed that we appoint a staff member to be a central point person to coordinate all the activity. The GAC would continue to do what they're doing, but it's just make it clear that the accountability and responsibility is a staff responsibility and not left to volunteers.
Okay, I noticed you mentioned, you do mention their names.
Yes.
Karina, do you know if Charles has appointed someone to be the point?
I will say, as far as the GAC's involvement, I don't know to what extent that is and what's going on. I do know that in-house we have been talking with with a company that would be able to provide a third-party vendor to come in. We're actually supposed to meet with them, I believe, on Wednesday for our first video chat, just kind of get the introduction. I will have to follow up with Charles to really see where the direction is going for that.
You're not aware of a staff person being the
We have not assigned anything yet, I think, that I'm aware of.
With that information, does it change the way you want to write this?
Yeah, I don't think it does either. I think what this is trying to accomplish, and we just heard that this has been going on for years, okay? And most likely it's been going on for years because no one has owned it. No one has owned it. It hasn't been really supported to the entirety that it needs to. In the past, that's all I'm going to say, in the past. So this recommendation to me is simply been good dialogue with people that have been involved in it before. Again, volunteers. We probably spent a lot of hours unpaid working on this for the betterment of the village. So their input has been solicited and obtained, very valuable input. Now, if Tom hadn't have got, if you guys hadn't gotten their input, I would have an issue with it, but you did. So that's great. And what we have now is just a very simple recommendation for the board to consider to move off of Center Point, to move off, to nudge the progress line, to nudge the team. And they might choose to revise it. They might choose to, they have freedom upon a vote to change it as they see fit. But the point is, all we're trying to say here is, let's get off of the treadmill and appoint a champion to head this up, rally the team, put the right resources behind it, and possibly some money behind it, and start making progress. Okay? Start making progress. And that's how I interpret this. And I think it meets that criteria, and we could debate specifics and timelines and all that. All that's flexible. This is flexible. This is the most important part of this is just who's going to head it up? Who is going to head it up? Is it the board? Is it the GM? Is it somebody selected by the GM? Is it somebody appointed by the board? Until that is done, and that person has unwavering support, spin our wheels. That's how I see it. So
Well said.
Well,
in my mind, this is a recommendation. That's what this is, a recommendation for the board's consideration.
It's a person they can go to for accurate information. We had people even saying we don't have internet in the village. That's not true. It may not be the kind of internet you want, but that's the kind of person who can answer those questions and tell the truth.
And there were also, one of the things that I felt this person, and I'm sure this would be included in their job description, was they said there were a lot of, due to competition, that some of the major providers, there are 3 in the village, and of those 3, they really don't want more providers. So legislatively, some of the data that has been compiled at the state level may or may not be 100% accurate. And if we had a village champion, we could have someone lobbying, if you will, on our behalf at the state. And I think that would be one of the most important criteria for this employee. That's to be concluded later, but I thought it was very interesting.
Well, and that's why I stated that I don't know what all has gone on. As Dick mentioned, there's been a lot of work over the last several years on this, and me stepping in and not knowing what all of that work has been. I do know that we have reached out to some of our contacts within the organization, reaching out and knowing that there are possibly some possibilities and some avenues that we could go, but we kind of need to know what page everybody is on and make sure we all kind of get on the same page before we go forward. So I would like to be able to talk to Charles and the board and see exactly what direction. But like you said, get off the treadmill.
So I make a motion we approve as written to forward to the board.
Well, I'd like to make the motion for the two goals that remain, one being internet and the other being housing development.
Rather than vote on it individually.
Well, you can vote on them individually, but ultimately,
Yeah.
Okay. I
Let's
second
do
that
it
motion.
individually since you're already there.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Are approved.
Well, in that case, I make a motion to approve the second goal having to do with housing development. Looks like we want to discuss it.
I think
I just have one question.
Sure.
Just one question.
discussion.
Yeah, regarding the cumulative housing starts at 375, I get where that comes from. You have it outlined 100 and 125 and 150. I get that. So the way this is written, the 3 additional PA type developments would be housing starts in addition. Above and beyond that.
No, that would include.
Could you clarify that?
That would ultimately, I think the village doesn't care how we get 100 or 125 or 150. But in order to get to larger and larger numbers, I think
That is a way to get
you
the 100,
need
125.
to,
Okay.
to do that.
All right.
And again, just a little bit of background. Stephanie Heffer has seen this particular write-up, and she was okay with it.
I understand. Other discussion? I would move to approve.
More
You
discussion?
approved. Did you want a second? Or
Yeah,
did- no,
I
I'm
made a
So
sorry.
you made approve, I'll say.
More discussion?
What do you want to do? Help me out here. Is this some kind of a motherhood discussion where everybody's for motherhood, but you know, they don't want to be against it? What do you want to accomplish with this?
Well, if you read the goals, there are really 3 ideas in here. The first is just raw numbers. We have a goal of 100 for next year. All this does is state that if we hit 100 next year, we want to grow that number the next year, and we're going to want to grow the number further out. So it just has a longer scope of vision than 1 year. So it lays out a farther out target. The second thing we think it's important is to have these, for lack of a better term, group development projects. I suppose I've been trying to avoid the term pocket neighborhood because it's associated with the CMP, but having pocket neighborhoods seems like a good thing. There's a lot of reasons why they're viewed as good, but just the numbers alone are attractive. The third thing in here says we need to develop relationships with developers so that we can replicate our one success story so far, which is the Ciega neighborhood. So it's what am I trying to do here is put in writing 3 things: continued housing growth, the development of pocket neighborhoods, and the development of relationships with builders, which will enable us to either accelerate the one house at a time approach, plus the development of pocket neighborhoods. That's the quote short version of what the goal is trying to state. And
well, you're aware that we just had a groundbreaking meeting with all of the realtors, right?
I'm aware that you had the meeting. I'm not aware of the outcome.
For the first time, we've provided the realtor community with a tool that we have that will show you lots that are available, lots that are buildable, lots that have clear title, and so forth. The realtor community has never had access to that. We've just given them access to that. We've also given them spiffs on doing what you're saying, giving them the option of clustering lots for one of their builders, bringing those to the table, selling them to them, and that's just happened here recently with one of them, and creating these little cluster communities. So that's happening as we speak. But again, I don't know where the Finance and Planning Committee fits in saying we ought to do that.
So you're saying this duplicates the communication you've already had with the real estate community?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And the real estate community, I don't know if any of you were at that meeting or bothered to follow up on it. They embraced it and have already made good use of it. So that's happening out there as we speak.
And my interpretation of us setting a goal, which I believe we were asked to do, but was to provide a degree of accountability. And the realtors are a very important part of our community, but I'm not sure we have any way to measure their accountability. They're independent business people. And it seems to me that someone within the village staff might want to have some continuing interaction with them just to make sure this gets done.
Well, we took the point of view that a free market solution was the best way to do it instead of trying to compete against the realtor community. And, you know, this is just what, a month ago, 6 weeks ago that we did this. So I don't know, you know, what the long-term implications of this will be. But I would expect that with something like 55 houses on the realtor program right now, this will grow and grow and grow. You know, the housing inventory is as low as it's ever been.
I think the one thing, this is Jeff Lofgren, I think the one thing to consider on this is that in talking to some of my realtor friends, there is a threshold of number of properties available in a community for it to be a viable growth community. I don't have that number off the top of my head, but I know that the realtor community does. Somebody there on the planning committee may have that, but that number, if you go below it, and we are currently below it in the village, means that people are coming to the village and are going away and not coming back because there's nothing available. Where we could have had them move into the village and now had assessments on them, etc. So I think there is value in understanding and have some goals on keeping our inventory at a certain level. Maybe we figure out what that level is supposed to be based on what realtors see as a viable market. And then based on that, we can monitor whether or not we're achieving that. That goes to a longer plan on financial planning for assessments and potential income that could be brought into the village with that kind of a growth profile. When we go below that growth profile, we know now we're going to negatively impact future budgets. Over.
Well, Jeff, this is Larry Senior. I think there's another part of that we need to be looking into, though, and I don't know that anybody is, and that's what the builder capacity is. The impression that I have, and it's anecdotal, but I have a couple of folks in my neighborhood who are trying to build houses and being told their builders can't get to them before February and March. Bottom line is, most of the folks that are building in the village are not large operators. Their ability to scale to get to 150, 175, 200 homes a year is probably not there. So you either need to have a conversation, and this would have to be a official, in my opinion, official board type thing, where you establish a relationship with one or two of those builders and you give them enough assurances that they can staff up to be able to support that kind of velocity. Or you're going to have to go out and try to encourage other builders of the type that you have now to join the team here in the village to be able to increase that velocity. Otherwise, you can sell a lot of property, and looks to me like 75 to 90 homes a year is pretty much the max that the builder community can put out right now.
Well, you've got other issues too. There's a thing called COVID, which you need to assess. And there's also the fact that lumber prices have gone up over 30% this year. And lumber availability is not there right now. So you just can't turn the knob and things happen because of availability and this COVID.
Are we aware of any builders that have been contacting our GM inquiring?
Stephanie would know that better than I do.
Well, Stephanie Heffer deals with these builders every day. She's out there every day in conversations with them and trying to make life easier for them. But it's a tough life out there right now.
I would say because we have a tough situation, Dick, as you mentioned there, and yet we know we need to work to improve our overall capacity. The efforts that are already ongoing with the realtors and the current builders is good, but it's something that probably worth monitoring so we can understand what our financial health is looking like moving forward is probably not a bad goal for us to have. Over.
Well, there's nothing wrong with making, projections 50, 75, 100. But the climate out there is going to dictate whether that is 50, 75, or 100.
Dick, was that meeting recorded with the real estate community?
I couldn't tell you. I don't think it was. We had it down at the DeSoto Club, but I'm not sure that it was recorded.
Right. We didn't have details from that. All right. What does this discussion do with your proposal?
I still think it's a good idea to present it. I mean, they don't have to do anything with it if they don't want, but I still feel it's a worthy goal. I'm, as important as it is, I'm uncomfortable just saying, well, the realtors are going to do it, but.
So listening to this, my impression is there's two paths you can take. And the real question is, where do you want to put the belly button for the task? It sounds like you already have a staffer who's working with the builders, working with the realtors, doing a lot of this work. Probably possesses way more information than the combined total of everybody in this room. That information informs finance and planning, it informs marketing, it informs several of the other committees. Sounds like, what we may need to do is ask that individual to come to a future meeting and give us a little bit of background on what they're doing, where they are, what their next steps are, what their objectives are, and let us see if there's anything we can do to help that along, if there's anything we can do to suggest alternative solutions to problems they might be facing.
Would that be Stephanie or someone else?
Yeah, Stephanie. We've met with Stephanie and she, from my recollection, pretty much said, give me a goal.
Yeah.
If it's tough, I like it all the more. So I think she wanted a degree of specificity, which was part of what we tried to encompass in this.
Yeah, our group met with Stephanie, but that was prior to this meeting Dick and these people had. So whatever changed there, who knows?
And I
We
think,
have no idea.
again, from my recollection, she had, and I hope this is an okay thing to state, but she had said that she had curtailed, I mean, she's pretty much been involved in this for years, and she had curtailed some activities because of a lack of direction, because it was a CMP term. And she says, there were some good things that the baby got thrown out with the bathwater on some of those situations. So this kind of clears her road to do some of the things that she feels are good. We felt anyway.
All right, the motion has been made and seconded. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Nay? Motion passes.
For the benefit of this committee, I like what Larry said about perhaps asking Stephanie to just really update us or allow us to ask specific questions with respect to housing development.
I'm not a voting member at this point in time, but I would agree with that.
No, I mean,
I think we
I
need to
think
bring the expert in, let
we-
them tell us what they've been doing.
Right.
And then if she is having difficulty, if she has curtailed, some of the, I'll use it to put it this way, some of the right things to do because of politics, let's go fix that.
I would agree.
Yeah, I mean,
Things have changed a lot since we had Stephanie in the last time, when she was very helpful.
Yeah.
Things have changed, so.
I mean, this committee lives on information, so if we need information, then we should see if we can acquire it.
All right, you're confusing me now.
Well, I
I'm
mean,
glad you said that. Yeah, does this?
I mean, I think we've adopted this or approved the goal, but I think we still need the information, but we'd like to hear from Stephanie about what her activities.
That makes sense to me in principle, but before drafting the final version, speak with Stephanie.
I think we should speak with Stephanie. I mean, if we want to withhold approving this until after speaking with Stephanie, I'm okay with that.
Well, we've just voted on this, and I
Mhm.
believe that we should take that as in principle.
Okay.
And before finalizing the actual draft, we will seek some
Okay.
information from Stephanie. All right.
Yeah, I'm not a rules person, but since we've had the vote, do we need an amendment to say we're tabling it till we meet with Stephanie or?
Well, we could also interpret the vote as being a vote. Let's have the appropriate content to now review with Stephanie.
Right.
I'll write it up, you guys correct me if you don't like it, okay?
All right.
Glad you're writing it up.
Thanks.
All right. Garrison is with us today by Zoom, and he is, I believe he will help clarify our mission to quantify infrastructure needs. It's been done in the past, but as Dick says, it should be updated, and now's a good time to do that. All right, Dick.
Let me begin by apologizing for being a poor liaison for you folks. But I have a wonderful excuse. I've had COVID for the last 2+ weeks. So I really haven't been myself over this period of time. And I struggle a little bit still to follow things. I've had no fever. I've had no loss of senses. I've had no stomach disorders, any of that nature, but I have no strength. And doing the role of a board member during this 2 weeks has been a burden. I will tell you, it has not been easy. And we've gone through obviously a lot of things, but here's where we stand with the F&P and going forward with the assessment review. First of all, I don't know whether you folks are aware, but I'm one of the fathers of the F&P. I saw a need to present information in a much better way than we were presenting it. I saw a need to clean up some of our financials the way we reported them, and was all for the original F&P committee. So I'm one of your fathers. As it pertains to the assessment increase, Charles King has given us a deadline of January 15th, for which he will do his job, and it is his job to present to us what he sees as hardline assessment increased needs. In other words, infrastructure that needs to be fixed. At that point, we would ask that your committee take a look at it. And at that point, we would ask that your committee also take a look at how much money you think we need to go out with an assessment increase. And we'd also like an opinion from you on a timeline. And we will develop a timeline for an assessment increase over the next month. Because that's on our plate right now. We want to get that done. In reviewing the infrastructure needs, there's no way you can have too many eyes on that project. And so we want all of you to be a part of that. I would make a suggestion to you that you don't meet on the 28th, you take Christmas off and enjoy your family or whatever. And we'll get back on this first of the year, but that's up to you. It's your committee. You do what you want. But if I were in your shoes, I would scrap that 28th meeting and then wait till the first of the year till Karina and Charles and Stephanie and Jason Temple and that whole staff come back to us with something that isn't $50 million. There was a suggestion earlier that we had a 3-year capital plan and that we ought to follow it. Well, that 3-year capital plan was over $50 million in spending. There's no way a business our size can come up with $50 million. The few things that I know for certain that are overstated in that, golf, for example, the prognosis for the Balboa golf course was twice what it should cost. We have lower bids on that golf course that ain't $8 million. So anyway, I'm looking forward, and you should be looking forward to staff coming back by the 15th of January, and then ratcheting up your involvement at that time in helping with the board and staff coming up with a solution for an assessment increase, creating a timeline, creating a marketing strategy, and so forth and so forth. So that's my little speech on the assessment increase.
All right.
Dick, this is Jeff Lofgren. Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
During your board meeting, you guys also talked about establishing either an ad hoc or a task force or something like that. Can you explain the relationship between the Financial Planning Committee and such a task force, or any further developments on that discussion? Over.
I'm still fighting that. I don't think we need another task force. I think we've got a finance and planning committee that can do the numbers crunching. I think the board itself should take on the marketing of the thing. Asking others in. I mean, there's some good marketing people out there we bring in, but I haven't lost that fight yet, and I haven't won that fight yet. And again, the way we work, I'm one of several, so that's to be determined. But I don't think we need another RAS, Finance Committee, Future Funding Task Force kind of venture. I think we've got what we need.
And Dick, was there any discussion about just using the Financial Planning Committee and then just add a few expertise to it to support the activity? Over.
There was, and again, we haven't finalized that. I wish we had. I wish I could sit here and tell you that I won and that's what we're going to do, but we'll get there and we'll come up with a solution. And I hope it is not creating another committee.
All right.
May I? I'm not sure if this is an appropriate time or place or thing. I've given a lot of thought to, personally, I'm quite aware that we need an assessment increase, be it special, be it otherwise. There's a number of villagers already gathering against just that. The fact that the board met and decided to see if the new system of election would be appropriate for that caused all sorts of consternation. I've taken it upon myself to order a book called the Citizen Participation Handbook from Bliker Communications, and wonder if anybody would care to look through it. It looks thick, but you can scan through it to get the general principles. It strongly, and it is for municipalities, government entities, which we are not, but we're closely related. And it explains how if you're having something that's going to be unpopular to some PAIs or PIAs, potential affected individuals, PAIs, that you contact them sooner rather than later. I'm a firm advocate of that being true, because otherwise they form their opinions, they're dead set against it, and I don't care what type of marketing we do, it's not going to be appropriate. And I wonder, Dick, if it's possible that when the board discusses this, you could possibly charge this committee as the participation handbook says, you're better off doing low-level people, I fit that bill, who have no decision-making capacity, but allow them to involve the, what I'll call the anti-assessment people, who I think if we engage them in the process sooner than later, we can save ourselves a lot of marketing headaches down the road, as well as potentially bring the village together instead of dividing it. I don't know.
I couldn't agree with you more. And this is truly a thing that'll take a village.
Yes.
We're going to need every neighbor, every friend, everybody that you know to help you on this. We need help. I think we've done a lot of behind the scenes stuff already that we haven't disclosed yet. And there's more coming, and there will be more and more and more, and we will have a timeline, and we'll have a lot of things I'm not prepared to discuss now. But having said that, those people are still out there. And Kathy, you're 100% right. I couldn't agree with you more.
So if anybody would like to, you can't duplicate this book. And I do have it on digital, but I have said I will not distribute it digitally. So if you want to pass around this book, you're more than welcome to. Once you get the basic concept, it's pretty easy. Do your due diligence, know everything you can, which I'm incapable of. I don't have that good a head for detail, but know enough and engage these people. I think they need to come mid-January. We need to start meeting with the naysayers. It may be confrontational, but that's why you don't use decision makers to do it. And it's really I think a dynamite methodology, and it's outlined carefully. Just for
first step, Kathy, would you give that to Pam Avila?
Certainly.
Because Pam is going to be heading a lot of the strategy part of this. And I think that would be a good use of information to give that to her.
Does anybody here have contact with her? Okay.
I've got her number, Kathy.
Yeah, but
I've got her number.
you want to take it to her personally?
I can.
No, I can see that she gets hold of it. If anybody else wants to see it first, we have some time, but again, I feel it's imperative to involve those people now, rather than, because they're already saying you're going to have to really sell us. And it's like, okay, what are your solutions to the problems? This came to me. I find this an interesting story, so bear with me. Lincoln Electric System in Lincoln, Nebraska needed to put some type of electric transmission lines in people's backyards, somewhere between 7 and 8 in a town of 350,000. They had eminent domain. They could just say, we've chosen your house, you're out of here, bye. They chose to use this biker approach, met with probably 90% of those 350,000 population via a variety of methodologies. Some were town hall type things, others. They asked for their input before, explained why we need these things, what's going to happen if we don't have them, blah, 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 and asked for their solutions, saying we won't have electricity in 20 years if we don't get these things. And it got to be a joke. It really was like, well, at least you're doing something good if your house gets there. I may have to live by that thing. It really was a unifying experience. And I think we're capable of doing that. I certainly hope so. So thank you for listening.
And at the end of the day, you'll still have people who won't be for it.
Yes, we will. And I hope to limit that to a much smaller percentage, however, and have the former, maybe what I'd call people, and maybe those people do have better ideas. Maybe they can, as has been suggested in the past, bring in 500 golf tournaments in the next 2 years. And that person has since moved, but that it's a simple thing to do. And as long as they're willing to, as long as they're involved in the process and come up with a solution that can be discussed and validated in terms of its viability, because everybody's got an idea that we don't need money. And I think most of us, maybe, and quite a few people in the village agree that we do need money, but the term assessment increase, I'd like to, from this point forward, call it a maintenance backlog solution rather than assessment increase, simply because people emotionally are against an assessment increase, and ask those people that are to meet with us individually. I've got 2 of them I'm meeting with now, so I'm putting some of this to work and haven't won yet, but I think I'm making progress. So again, I shouldn't dominate this, but I really want to jam this down your throats if I'm attempting to do that.
Very good point, very good,
Buy-in is essential.
very good.
Okay, does everybody understand what Dick is saying? All right. And
Gary,
Dick-
this is Jeff Lofgren. Just one question, and I guess it would be for anybody there who could maybe either educate me, or Dick, you can maybe throw out. When I was at the board, I heard him talk, the GM, Charles, talked about his team putting together their little assessment as far as that goes. I guess my concern is that when I listened to their time horizon of their assessment, it wasn't what I would consider an infrastructure time horizon. I think they said 3 to 5 years, or somebody I think said 7 years, but even that time horizon is something that I think the committee should probably reflect on or think about, and this is maybe some research that we can do in the as we prepare for the receipt of their analysis in January. But most successful organizations that deal with aging infrastructure don't have a 5-year plan. They have a much longer time horizon because it is expensive and it takes time. And then that creates a risk equation that has to be thought about. I think there were some good words about what are the requirements that we're talking about here. But to me, I think that I'd like to understand, is there a time horizon? Is that open for discussion, I guess? Over.
Well, I think that you've hit the nail on the head, Jeff. I mean, who's done this before? We're a 50-year-old community. Well, no, I'm talking about in the village here. We're a 50-year-old community, and frankly, we've never assessed this. I was on the Future Funding Task Force. We worked 9 months and worked our asses off. And in the end, management squandered everything we came up with in the West End in a couple of years. So this is a new game, and I don't know what the horizon is. I don't think you do. I don't think anybody does. But I think that if we all sit down together and we all discuss it together and we all review it together, I think we'll come up with a fair compromise on what that horizon is.
Jeff,
Right now, I don't think anybody has any idea what it is.
I think when we get our hands on the existing material, we determine what those deferred maintenance items are. If we're talking about miles and miles of water line, then obviously that's going to take a lot of time. If it's repairing a building, maybe not so long. So I think you're right. We need to take a look at that timeline when we see this list of deferred maintenance.
One of the things I think you guys could do to get ahead of this a little bit is get with Ella Scotty and get all of the data from the Future Funding Task Force. I mean, we spent months and very intensive meetings on this very subject, and we documented it, and it's there. But it really didn't work because the $3 million a year we gave the POA, they blew it down on the West End, and with the new pool and the new DeSoto Club and pickleball and so forth. So there also has to be a bucket or buckets that this money goes into, and it doesn't leave that bucket until it fixes the problem that bucket addresses, and that has to be very specific. And that has to be part of the sell when you go to the people and say, we want your money, and here's what we're going to do with it, and here's the restricted use of that money. Okay, no more new pool. We're going to fix the roads, and we're going to fix the culverts, and we're going to fix the golf courses and so forth. So anyway, one of the things you guys could do to get ahead would be to go to Ella and get what info she has from the Future Funding Task Force.
All right.
So a thought in that area, Gary. Few weeks, we're going to get the staff's recommendations for cost. Probably at our next working group, we probably need to sit down and figure out what our process is going to be for evaluating that. And the reason I say that is I'm coming out of industry recently. I'm a hands-on guy. I don't want to sit in a room with a column full of cost numbers and challenge cost numbers of things I haven't seen. I actually want to go tramp the orchards. I want to go get in the truck with a facilities guy. I want to go see the facilities. I want to understand what the problems are. We need to get some pictures of that so that we can do a better job of communicating to some of those people out there, to Kathy's point, some of the issues that we really have. I just got here in July, had a lot for 5 years. This is a wonderful community. It runs very, very effectively. I think the staff does an excellent job. I think the folks that are here, generally speaking, do a really, really good job of what they're charged to do with the funding they have. But there's a lot of stuff that's deferred because there's just no money. And a lot of people don't have any understanding of what those deferrals are, what they need. Simple things like culvert repair. Question I would have would be, am I holding serve? Am I catching up, or am I losing ground? I know there's a budget to repair a certain number of culverts a year. I don't know if I'm catching up in 5 years. I'm not going to have a culvert problem anymore, or whether I'm just getting further and further and further behind and I'm kicking the can down the road for somebody else. Those are the kind of pieces of data that we need to be able to help us understand, to Dick's point, help understand what our recommendations would be for assessment increases, budget levels, whatever that might be, for the board then to make a decision.
Good point. We need to see, well, by the way, culverts has been pretty well attacked, I think.
It just happens to become an easy itch to scratch. That might be resolved, and that's wonderful. And if that's good, that's good news. But
It's
let's
on,
market that and take credit for
it's on a list, and as money comes in, it's being worked on, basically.
I would like to know whether it's agreed upon, whether it's a 7-year or longer term. This is gonna be a continuous process. It can't be, we do this today for 7 years and we're done. Because our needs are gonna constantly be going, and this is gonna constantly need to be updated and evaluated. And we are completely reworking what was out there before. We know we can't reach a $30 million right off the bat and so forth. Now, that doesn't mean that some needs aren't valid and it's gonna cost a lot, but also to Dick's point, we're reconstructing this list and this information based upon our needs, not our wants. So I think, whether it's the fact that do we need another new pool, or do we really need to go fix the roads out on Menorca or whatever the case is? This is our true needs that we are going to be working on. And like I said, it's always going to have to be updated, whatever time frame we're looking at, because everything's going to depreciate and deteriorate over time. And in order to sustain it, you got to keep working on it. That's my 2 cents.
The simplistic way of looking at it is there's a list, top of the list, every year moves to activity, and the list moves up. That's my simplistic way of looking at it. At the end of this process, I hope the board will adopt a procedure like that, so that every 3 years we don't have to redo it. The process, that is, right? And that's been and that apparently is what happened to Future Funding Task Force. They did all the work, board change, and went out the window. And we need to stop that.
Well, I assume part of what will be, that two points, soon part of what we'll be charged with will be to provide continuity beyond the immediate. We may have a funding for 2 years that's a special assessment, maybe 2 or 3 different ones, to make sure that it's not spent elsewhere, as the FFT stuff suggestions did. But once we have those finished, I think the plan that we put together hopefully will say, and beyond that, we need to increase capital needs by whatever it is, 3.5, whatever additional million once the immediate deferrals have been taken care of. And the other point I was going to say is, Larry, and I know John has some good knowledge too, would it be easier for the staff if they maybe got, kind of like the biker thing with the rest of the community, if they got involved in the process while they're still putting it together? So, for example, Jason and maybe people on the public works, there's a bunch of knowledgeable people there, but might be an access. I could meet with them and I wouldn't know what they were talking about. But
my opinion of that. I think it's a good idea, but I would not want to be seen as coloring their decisions during that evaluation process. They're the folks that live and breathe it every day. They're the ones that know where the issues are. They're the ones that need to develop a solution. Then once they put that list together, then I would like to go out with them and say, show me what you want to show me. Show me the bad stuff. I really want to see the bad stuff. I really want to see the ugly babies. I really want to see the stuff out there that nobody really knows about, because that will help us understand as a group where to rack and stack some of that infrastructure investment. But if I get out there too early, I potentially color their judgment, and I don't want to do that because they're the ones that are living. That's mine.
yeah, no, that makes sense. I know you guys are operating on extremely limited staff now, and anything we can do the number of meetings you have to go to takes away from the stuff you actually do. So I think that point is well taken.
Well, now at the same time, if the staff feels that it would be valuable to engage some of us early to help with some of that conversation, help with some of that dialogue, I'd be more than happy to support that. But I don't want to force myself.
I agree. I think you're right. We're here to help in any way we can. And we're not going to be, we don't want to be accused of looking over somebody's shoulder and say, hey, you didn't do that right. Our function is to investigate, maybe ask if all the questions were asked first, and that led up to the answer. So I think you're right.
Should we maybe ask the staff who were involved, which would be Socorro maybe and Temple, and how they'd like to work, maybe some combination? It seems like it'd save them time to me. You know them better than I do. I keep looking at you, but
I can pass the inquiry up and that's about what I can do. But I think there are.
Thursday, right?
Mhm.
You can take it to the staff.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. I can put feelers out and see and.
Yeah, just, and be sure it's not we and them, it's we. That's the way we look at this.
And to that end also, may I ask, I will contact Ella. I'll have to transmit the minutes to her, which I will try to get to a little more timely. And I'll ask her for the FFTF past history, scan them and send them to everybody if that's okay. I don't think she needs all of us asking her.
No, that's a good idea.
Thank you.
Okay. Dick brought up the December 28 meeting. How's everybody feel? We haven't discussed that yet. Should we cancel that meeting and hit the ground in January? That would be a question.
I personally think we should have a lot of holidays.
I agree. All right. All agreed?
Yep.
Very good. We will cancel the December 28 meeting and reconvene in January. Comments?
Welcome to the new team members. Glad to have you on board.
Much appreciated, and we need all the help we can get.
I think we can already tell that the two gentlemen are very welcome, and we appreciate your input. Absolutely. Dick, comments?
No, I think you guys have just had a good meeting here. I am happy to have heard all of this. Again, I'm off my game a little bit. I'm not who I should be at this point, but I'll get there. I'm out of quarantine now, and I'll get better, and I'll be hopefully a better part of this group going forward.
Well, we're glad you're feeling better. Looking forward to working with you. Karina, anything else? Do we have any comments from the audience? We have a couple people
Shaking their heads.
shaking head no. All right, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second. Say aye if you approve. Aye. Thank you.